You're making a grave mistake. You're fired. Don't ever come back." The manager's angry words echoed as he stormed out of the room. I sat there, stunned. So, it's over. Huh? I thought. Despite my consistent contributions and lack of major errors, it looks like I need to start job hunting. 2 days later, my cell phone rang unexpectedly. "David, it's good you picked up. Can you come back to the office immediately?" I rushed back to the company, puzzled but hopeful. "I'm David. I live with my devoted wife and our lively 8-year-old son. I work for a subsidiary of a major food manufacturer, managing the ordering and receipt of food products for both restaurants and retail customers. It's a role that demands meticulous attention to detail, and I've always handled it well, without significant errors. However, there was always one problem at the office. David, this document was due today, wasn't it?" Paul, the manager, barked at me. Paul, who's in his 40s and younger than I am, is the son of the director of the main food manufacturing company. His arrogance and belief that he's always right made him a challenging boss. Despite his recent promotion to director just 2 weeks ago, he seemed to have taken an instant dislike to me, increasing my workload daily and micromanaging my every move. After finishing that, "Get this document done too, and do it quickly." "Understood. You should be proactive, not waiting for your boss to tell you what to do. Honestly, you're so careless." He tossed a stack of papers onto my desk and left. As I gathered the scattered documents, I overheard my colleagues whispering among themselves. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but their murmurs were impossible to ignore. "Paul really has it in for David, doesn't he? David's always so precise and error-free. I can't understand why he's getting such a hard time." Well, David can be a bit absent-minded. At his age, he hasn't climbed the corporate ladder much. Maybe he's not interested in promotions. With that attitude, it's no surprise he's not advancing. Even when Paul scolds him, he just smiles and brushes it off. As I overheard my colleagues chatting behind my back, I sighed. Let them talk. I'm just doing my job the way I know how, I thought, focusing on my tasks. However, one day, as I worked diligently, a colleague suddenly burst into a panic. He answered the phone, his face drenched in sweat, and kept apologizing repeatedly. Curious about the commotion, I watched him hang up and approach me. "David, what's going on here?" "Me?" I asked, puzzled. He handed me a note, a complaint from a major client. "We ordered 50 units of the regular business product and 500 household items to distribute as samples, but they only received the 50 units of the business product. They're furious because they needed the household items for an event in 3 days. How are we going to fix this?" Seriously? That's impossible. I've never made such a mistake, and I was sure I checked this order carefully. Why did this happen? I felt a wave of panic. I managed orders for both business and household products. The large packs for business and the individually packaged household items have similar names, making them easy to confuse. Given the risk of such errors, I always double-checked. Yet, here we were with a complaint. I quickly gathered my composure and opened my computer to verify the order. The purchase order displayed a record of 50 business products. This doesn't make sense. I'm sure I ordered the 500 household items too. A chill ran through me as I stared at the screen, trying to reconcile the discrepancy. Just then, Paul's voice boomed through the office. "What kind of mistake is this? You're a useless employee." "No, I definitely ordered the 500 household items as well." "Enough. You clearly only ordered the business products. If you have time to make excuses, you better find those 500 household items now." Paul shoved me against my desk in his rage and stormed out of the room. My colleagues watched the scene with concern, but no one stepped forward to help. I had no choice but to find those household items myself. I rushed back to my desk and began calling our branches. I'm really sorry for the urgent request, but if you have any spare household items, could you send them over as soon as possible? I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. I owe you one. Only 240 items were left, and we had just 3 days until the client's event. Can I really gather all 500 by then? No time to second guess. I need to act now. I frantically made calls to find a solution. I'm deeply sorry for the trouble. Yes. Thank you for checking. I continued pleading and bowing over the phone, even offering to pick up any available stock personally. Only 70 items left. The day before the event, I was finally holding boxes filled with the products. My back bent in gratitude. Thank you so much for this. I can't express my gratitude enough. I managed to secure the full 500 items and headed to the client's location to deliver them. But when I arrived, the person in charge greeted me with a scowl and a gaze full of anger. What's going on? We've been doing business for a long time, but this is unacceptable. I'm sorry, but I can't trust you anymore. Our business relationship is over. The client took the goods, slammed the door in my face, and I stood there, head bowed in defeat, before slowly making my way back to the office. I did everything I could. You really messed up this time. If this keeps happening, you'll ruin the company's reputation. You're fired. Get out now and don't come back. With those words, the manager stormed out. I trudged back to my desk, feeling utterly defeated. Is this really how it ends? My mistake has caused so much trouble for the company. I've always been a reliable employee, but now I'll have to start job hunting. At my age, with my lack of upward mobility, it won't be easy. How do I break this news to my wife and son? With a heavy heart, I began packing up my belongings as the day wound down. I apologized to my colleagues. I'm really sorry for the trouble I've caused. Thank you for everything. I'll be on my way now. I went around saying my goodbyes and then clocked out. After finalizing the formalities for my remaining paid time off, I realized I had nothing left to do with the company. It's been a long 3 days. As I stretched my neck and shoulders, feeling the strain of the past few days, a heavy thought lingered. What will I tell my wife and son when I get home? Will they be disappointed? Will they see me as a failure? No, they'll greet me with their usual smiles. They won't blame me, but the thought of disappointing them feels even harder to bear. Lost in thought, I arrived home. Welcome back. Dad, you're late. You look a bit off. Did something happen? My son's cheerful greeting cut through my fog of worry. I took him into my arms and forced a smile, shaking my head. Just a little something. I'll explain later. Okay, then, let's have dinner once you've changed. I trudged slowly to my bedroom. My wife and son's warm smiles were exactly as I had imagined, but they made it even harder to find the right moment to break the news. I'll tell them after dinner, I resolved. Feeling a renewed sense of purpose, I joined them in the living room. Let's eat! Let's eat! My son exclaimed. As we sat down, my wife looked at me with concern. So, what happened? You seem a bit down. Is everything okay? Their genuine concern made my heart pound, and I knew I couldn't delay it any longer. Taking a deep breath and summoning my courage, I began to speak. I'm really sorry. You too. It looks like I've been laid off from work. My wife's eyes widened in shock, leaving her momentarily speechless, but it was my son who broke the silence with excitement. That's awesome, Dad. You don't have to go to work anymore. Well, yeah, I'll be home for a while starting tomorrow, I said, a bit surprised by his enthusiasm. Yay, let's go to the amusement park then. I've been wanting to go. He beamed, his smile lighting up the room. I stared at him, not expecting such a positive reaction. My wife then began to chuckle softly. Oh, that's a great idea. You've seemed so busy lately. It'd be nice for you to relax. I'd be happy if you were home more often. Their responses took me aback, but I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Neither of them blamed me for the layoff. Perhaps this was a chance to slow down and spend quality time together. After all, since my son had grown up, we hadn't gone on any long trips. I had relied heavily on my wife for parenting and household chores, so maybe this was a good opportunity to reconnect with the family. Lost in thought and appreciating the moment, I smiled warmly at them. How about this weekend? When there's no school, let's all go to the amusement park. Yay! Thanks, Dad. I'm looking forward to it already. My son's joyful exclamation filled the living room. The warmth of the moment was a comforting balm. I felt truly blessed to share such happy times with my family. With a sigh of relief, I resumed my meal, savoring the simplicity of the evening. However, the next morning, just after I had taken my paid leave, my cell phone rang. It was a colleague from work. I wondered what could be the matter. Did I make another mistake? With a sense of unease, I answered the call. Hello, this is David. David, I'm glad you answered. I'm sorry to bother you during your time off, but could you come to the office right away? Did something happen? I'm sorry. I can't explain everything over the phone, but it's urgent. Please come back as soon as you can. Understood. I'll be right there. Sensing the urgency, I quickly got dressed. My wife looked at me with concern. Is everything okay? Was that the office? Yeah, they need me. I have to go. I arrived at the office about 40 minutes later. As I approached my department, the same colleague who had called me hurried over. David, thank goodness you're here. Please, follow me quickly. Following my hurried colleague, I couldn't help but wonder why the sudden rush. What could possibly have happened? As we hurried through the office corridors, he began to explain the situation. After you were fired, an infuriated COO stormed into our department. He recounted. He demanded to know where you were. Paul, who had been present, tried to dismiss the COO's concerns. Oh, are you talking about David? We're managing fine without him. The COO's reaction only intensified his anger. What are you talking about? Bring David back immediately. That's when they decided to contact me. I remained puzzled as my colleague led me to the CEO and a visibly upset manager. Hey, David, good to have you back, the CEO greeted. I thought I was fired, I said, still bewildered. At the mention of fired, the CEO's eyes widened in surprise, and then he burst into hearty laughter. We'd never let you go. Without you, who would manage our transactions? He then directed me to his computer screen. There, I saw the order page for our products with a glaring red warning icon. I raised my voice in concern. Hey, something's wrong here. It looks like no orders have been placed since I was fired and went on unpaid leave. Exactly, the CEO said. That's because you weren't here. Huh? Why would orders stop just because I'm not around? Because, David, it's a job only you can handle. The CEO then handed a note to Paul, who sat silently. Paul, can you place the order from this note? Sure, Paul said, taking the note and heading to the computer. But as he was about to enter the details, he halted, looking completely baffled. Excuse me, what's written here? I need this in English to place the order. The CEO burst into laughter at Paul's confusion. After a moment, he regained his composure and turned to me. David, can you handle the order from that note? Wait, what? No way. If I couldn't do it, there's no way David could. Just get up and hand that note to David. Reluctantly, Paul passed the note to me, grumbling under his breath. I took the note, sat at the computer, and began to process the order. This is a food product from Singapore. I'll place the order now. Is that English? The words look all jumbled. The next item is from Australia. Oh, what's this product called? I can't read this at all. Despite Paul's interruptions, I continued methodically. Once I had entered all the items from the note, I turned to the COO. If there's anything else, I'll order it right away. We have our regular order with South Africa coming up soon, right? That's right. If there are any additional requests, bring them over. David's back, and he can handle it immediately. As the COO spoke, several employees rushed over with their order requests. David, could you please handle this? I need this done urgently. Amidst entering the orders, I overheard Paul grumbling from a distance. I can't believe it. How can David, of all people, place these orders? It suddenly occurred to me, Paul didn't realize that I was proficient in English dialects. During my college years, I had studied various English dialects and nearly aced the test. I had specifically focused on English influenced by local languages from regions like Singapore and South Africa, which allowed me to understand order forms without constantly referring to local terms. This skill had been invaluable in managing transactions smoothly. After completing the input of all the requested orders, I meticulously double-checked the product names and quantities. Everything looks accurate and has been sent. I breathed a sigh of relief, confident that the orders were correctly processed. But then, as I reviewed the order records, something unusual caught my eye. Wait a minute, what's this? This computer, dedicated solely to managing orders, also recorded the order history and updates. It even logged the name of the employee operating it at the time. Examining the records, I saw that the last update was logged on the very day I was supposedly fired. To my surprise, the name listed for that update was Paul's. I see how it is. So, what's going on here, David? Realization dawned on me, and I stood up abruptly. The error with the orders the other day wasn't my fault. Was it, Paul? Paul's face reddened, and he tried to deflect. It was your mistake, and that's why you were fired. Really? I challenged him. You're the one who updated the system that day, not me. Pointing to the computer screen, I continued. You're the expert on these orders, and you said you couldn't understand the English dialects involved. So how do you explain this? Without waiting for a response, I printed out the screen showing Paul's name as the last person to update the system and held it up for everyone to see. Take a look. It clearly shows Paul as the last person who made changes. Paul's face went pale as he floundered for words. No, but the room's attention was fixed on the paper I held. The CEO took the document, scrutinized it, and then addressed Paul with a stern voice. It looks like it's time for you to leave this company. Paul, no, this must be some mistake, Paul protested. His face drained of color. He stumbled over his words, but the CEO's expression remained stern. I'll be informing your father about this. Prepare for the consequences. With that, the CEO fixed Paul with a final, penetrating gaze before leaving the room. Paul, overwhelmed and desperate, let out a brief cry and sank weakly to the floor. As the CEO departed, my colleagues quickly gathered around me, their voices overlapping with surprise and apologies. David, I had no idea you had such skills. Honestly, I thought you were just messing up. I'm really sorry. We didn't interact much, and I thought you were a bit odd. I apologize for doubting you. I smiled and tried to ease the tension. Hey, you all didn't do anything wrong, so there's no need for apologies. It's good to know we can move past this. Plus, it seems like I still have a job here, so let's keep working together. Seeing their relieved and reassured faces, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. After proving I hadn't made any errors, I headed home. When I told my wife and son that I'd be returning to work, their joy was palpable. A few days later, while still on unpaid leave, my cell phone rang once more. It was the CEO. "Sorry to interrupt your time off. I received a call from a client. They insisted on speaking with you directly." "That's fine. What's the issue?" After the confusion with the order, the client wanted to clarify if it was indeed your mistake. They recalled your dedication and professionalism and felt there might have been a misunderstanding. "Oh, I see," I replied, reflecting on how reassuring it was that our longtime client had such confidence in me. The CEO continued, "I always believed you couldn't have made that mistake. To find out Paul had tampered with the orders is truly disappointing." Following the incident, we had a meeting with senior management, and as a result, Paul was dismissed. His actions were unacceptable, despite his father being a top executive at our parent company. From what I understand, Paul is now struggling to find new employment, as rumors of his misconduct have made it difficult for him. After ending the call, I took a deep breath. Now that I can return to work, I feel even more motivated. With Paul gone, I'm ready to focus on what lies ahead. My wife noticed my renewed energy and commented with a chuckle, "Looks like things are looking up." The next day, we enjoyed our promised family trip to the amusement park. My wife and I delighted in seeing our son's excitement. "Dad, Mom, we can get a fast pass here." "Oh, they offer that option?" I asked, intrigued. Our son explained how the fast pass system allowed us to bypass regular lines and enjoy attractions more efficiently. Seeing how our son had grown and how much he appreciated these moments warmed my heart. We spent the entire day enjoying the park, making the most of our time together. When it was time to return to work, I said my goodbyes and headed out earlier than usual. The familiar commute route seemed brighter, and as I arrived at the office, I brushed off the dust from my suit with a renewed sense of purpose. "Good morning," I greeted my colleagues. "Good morning, David. Sorry to bother you right as you're back, but could you handle this for me?" A colleague handed me an order form for Singapore. "Leave it to me," I said with a confident smile. And so, my routine resumed, and I dove back into work with a fresh perspective and renewed enthusiasm.